The employees of Skyline Enterprises had grown used to the heavy silence that followed their CEO wherever he went. Alexander Reed, known as the Cold CEO, was a man of few words, fewer smiles, and zero tolerance for mistakes. He was sharp, controlled, and fiercely private. No one dared to make small talk around him, let alone joke or ask personal questions. If someone was late, they were gone. If someone gossiped, they were transferred. No one really knew him, except that he ran the most powerful tech firm in the city, and he didn't like distractions. So, when a girl in muddy boots and a sunflower-printed dress walked into the marble-floored lobby one rainy morning, dragging a worn-out suitcase behind her, people stared. She didn't belong, not in this world of tailored suits, silent elevators, and polished glass. She looked lost but determined, a little nervous, but strangely calm. Her name was Emily Grace. She came from a small countryside town no one in the city had heard of. She didn't have a degree from an elite college or any corporate experience. She barely even knew how to use an espresso machine. But what she did have was a letter in her pocket, handwritten, signed by none other than Alexander Reed himself. Emily Grace is to be given full access and a personal position under my supervision, it said. The HR department thought it was a mistake. The front desk didn't believe her at first. Even the vice president raised an eyebrow. But after a quick confirmation email from Alexander's assistant, everyone went silent. Rumors spread like wildfire. Who was this girl? A hidden relative? A long-lost friend? Or worse, someone with leverage over the boss? Emily, however, wasn't interested in gossip. She was here for a reason, one she didn't explain to anyone. She worked quietly, listened carefully, and smiled even when others whispered about her behind her back. She didn't try to impress anyone, and maybe that's what made her so different. In a world full of people trying to stand out, she didn't try at all. And still, she was noticed, especially by him. To everyone's shock, Alexander Reed didn't just notice her. He started changing because of her. At first, it was subtle. He smiled once in a meeting when Emily accidentally spilled water on his file, and apologized so sweetly that the whole boardroom froze. Later, he began checking in on her work, standing beside her longer than necessary, offering small nods of encouragement no one else had ever received. People started noticing. His assistant, Claire, who had been with him for 5 years, whispered, "He's different when she's around." Then the real surprises began. One morning, Emily arrived to find a new desk set up waiting for her. Right, outside Alexander's private office. The best view, the most updated computer, and a fresh bouquet of wildflowers. From Mr. Reed, the card said. Another day, she mentioned missing the strawberry pie from her hometown. The next week, the entire staff cafeteria served it. The chef had been flown in from her village, temporarily hired just for that, but it wasn't just the sweet gestures. It was how he treated her, gently, protectively, almost like she was the only person in the world whose opinion mattered to him. One day, when a senior manager spoke harshly to Emily over a minor error, Alexander walked into the room, mid-conversation. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't fire the man. But the ice in his tone when he said, "That's not how you speak," to her, sent shivers through everyone present. It was clear. He was spoiling her, not just with things, but with attention, care, and silent loyalty. And no one understood why. Emily herself remained quiet about their connection. She didn't try to take advantage. She worked late, helped others, and never once acted like she was special. But still, questions lingered. Why her? What made the coldest CEO in the city melt for a simple country girl? Some said she must be his secret girlfriend. Others thought she had saved his life in the past. A few believed she reminded him of someone he'd lost. But only 2 people knew the truth. And neither of them were talking. The tension in the office grew day by day. Staff tried to piece it all together from hallway glances, shared elevators, and brief interactions. One evening, Alexander was seen personally handing Emily an umbrella in the rain and walking her to the car, something he'd never done for anyone. And then came the event that no one saw coming. The company's annual gala, a strictly formal affair where Alexander never brought a date, never stayed more than 20 minutes, and never danced. But that night, as the chandeliers sparkled and the city's most elite gathered in black suits and evening gowns, Alexander walked in with Emily on his arm. She wore a simple blue dress. Her hair was pinned up with a wildflower, and he looked at her like she was his entire world. The whispers turned to gasps. Some smiled, some glared, but no one said a word when he pulled out a chair for her, stayed by her side all evening, and, toward the end, invited her to dance. Just once, just one song. But that one moment changed everything. Still, the mystery remained unsolved, because behind Emily's warm smile and Alexander's quiet gaze, something was still hidden, something neither the office nor the city knew, a secret that connected them from long before they ever met in that lobby, and just when everything seemed to be turning into a fairy tale. One message on Alexander's phone made his expression harden again. He walked away from the gala without a word, and Emily's smile faded for the first time since she arrived. What was in that message? Who sent it? And would it change everything between them? You'll find out. In the next part, the music faded into the background as Alexander disappeared into the hallway, leaving Emily standing alone on the ballroom floor. People's stares returned, some curious, some amused, some sympathetic, but Emily didn't care about them. Her eyes stayed fixed on the direction he went, her fingers still holding the warmth of his hand. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her chest. Something had changed the moment he read that message. Back in his office, the screen of his phone still glowed with the last text. She doesn't know the truth yet, but she will soon. R. Alexander's jaw tightened as he read it over and over. He had done everything in his power to protect Emily from this, kept her in the light, far away from the shadows he lived with. But now the past had found its way to her doorstep, and it wouldn't be long before she uncovered everything. Emily, unaware of the storm brewing behind the walls, sat quietly in the car on the way home. She replayed the night in her head, the way he had looked at her, the way he had held her, hand like she meant more than just another employee. But the way he left, without even saying goodbye, that was what hurt the most. She didn't sleep that night. Something told her this wasn't just about work. It wasn't just about some bad news. It felt personal. The next morning, Alexander wasn't in the office. Neither was his usual calm. Whispers floated through the air like fog. The staff had seen the text flash on his phone before he left, though no one dared to mention it aloud. Claire, his assistant, looked tenser than usual, typing rapidly with a face pale with worry, and Emily, despite everything, went about her tasks as she always did. She waited, hoping he'd show up. He didn't. Days passed. Then one afternoon, a sleek, black car pulled up outside. From it stepped a woman, elegant, sharp-eyed, and cold as winter. She walked in like she owned the place, her heels echoing through the marble halls. Her name was Rebecca, and she was Alexander's former fiancée. No one had seen her in years. Some thought she'd moved abroad. Others said they had broken off their engagement quietly, with no real explanation. But now she was here, and when she asked to see Emily, the tension in the room nearly snapped. They met in a private conference room. Rebecca sat down gracefully, smiled, and placed her phone on the table. Emily sat across from her, confused, but calm. "I suppose he hasn't told you," Rebecca said. "Told me what?" Emily asked, her voice steady. Rebecca's smile turned colder. "That you're part of a story you don't even know you're in, and that Alexander Reed isn't who you think he is." Emily stared at her. "If you're here to scare me, it's not working." Rebecca leaned in slightly. "You came from a small town, right? The same one where Alexander's company opened a hidden research facility 5 years ago. Ever wonder why your name appeared in his files before you ever met?" Emily blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Let's just say," Rebecca said, standing up, "you were never just a coincidence. And people like me don't forget betrayal." With that, she left, her heels clicking once more as silence fell. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her phone and pulled up the letter Alexander had sent her months ago, the one that had brought her into this world in the first place. The paper felt heavier now. That night, Emily didn't go home. She took a cab straight to the outskirts of the city, toward a location she had once thought was just an office branch. But it wasn't. It was the facility Rebecca mentioned. She had to see it for herself. When she arrived, the gates were locked and security was tight, but someone inside noticed her. A man, older, kind-eyed. He looked startled when he saw her. "You're her," he said quietly. "Who?" Emily asked, heart pounding. He paused. "You're the girl from Project Serene." Her world spun. Back in the city, Alexander stood at his apartment window, gripping the edge of the curtain. He knew she'd find it. He just didn't think it would be this soon. Project Serene, a top-secret program he had shut down years ago when he discovered the truth behind it. It was meant to help children in poor rural areas with education and health, but someone had used it for illegal data testing without the locals knowing, and one of those children had been Emily. Alexander had found out too late. The files showed her name, her photo, her medical records, how she had suffered strange fevers, unexplained headaches, and memory gaps as a teen. He had buried the records, shut the project down, and paid every bribe he needed to keep her name out of the scandal, and he vowed he would fix it. So when he saw her again, years later, standing on that job application list, he made his choice. He brought her close, not out of pity, but because she had already suffered for his mistakes. And he had already fallen for her, long before he realized it. But now, Rebecca had dug it all up, and Emily was standing at the edge of the truth. Would she forgive him? Would she understand that everything he did, every kindness, every silent gesture, was real? Or would she walk away? The tension reached its peak the next morning. Emily entered the building early, with calm eyes and a letter in her hand. Alexander was already there, waiting, watching her. They didn't speak at first. The air between them was thick with everything unspoken. Then, Emily placed the letter on his desk. "I read the files," she said. "I saw everything." He swallowed hard. "I wanted to tell you. I know. I tried to protect you." "I know that too." Silence. Her voice softened. "But I need to hear it from you. Every truth. No more secrets, Alexander. No more hiding." His eyes met hers, raw and vulnerable for the first time. "I'll tell you everything," he said, "even if it means losing you." And that was the moment they both knew. The real story was just beginning. The room fell into an almost suffocating silence as Emily waited for Alexander's next words. Her heart beat loudly in her chest, the tension making the air thick, heavy. She had prepared herself for the truth, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure she was ready to hear it. She had trusted him, believed him, but the files, the lies, the secrets? How could she move forward after this? Alexander looked at her, and for the first time, there was no mask, no cold businessman, no careful protector, only a man exposed, vulnerable in a way that scared him more than anything he had ever faced. "I never wanted you to know," he began, his voice barely a whisper. "But I couldn't keep running from it. Not when it was always going to find us, no matter how hard I tried." Emily nodded slowly, trying to steady her own racing thoughts. "What was the project? What did they do to me?" Alexander ran a hand through his hair, pacing for a moment before he finally met her gaze. "It was a program designed for something good. At least that's how it started. But someone twisted it. They used it to manipulate the data of innocent children, testing their responses to various stimuli, messing with their memories, their emotions. And you were one of them." The words hit her like a slap. She had always felt different, but she never imagined it could be because of something like this. "So, everything about my past, the things I can't remember, the strange gaps in my mind, it was because of you, because of this project, not because of me," he corrected quickly. "Because of people who thought they could control everything, people who thought they could play with lives, as if we were all just experiments. But you, your strength, your resilience, those were always yours. You made it through all of that, and I kept you away from the truth to protect you. But I was wrong." Emily's eyes softened, and for a moment, it was as though the world had stopped spinning. She wanted to hate him, to feel anger and betrayal, but there was too much emotion in the air, too much history between them, too much of her own pain, to only see him as the villain. "Why did you protect me, Alexander?" she whispered. "Why not just tell me? Why keep me in the dark?" "Because I was scared," he admitted. "I was scared that the truth would push you away forever, that you'd leave me, that you'd hate me for not telling you sooner. But, most of all, I was scared of losing you." A single tear escaped Emily's eye, but she wiped it away quickly. She didn't have time to feel sorry for herself. Not when so much was at stake. "How can I trust you now?" she asked softly, her voice trembling slightly. "After all the lies, I never lied to you about how I felt," he said, stepping closer. "I never lied about that." The words hung in the air, suspended between them like a lifeline, and for a moment, Emily wasn't sure if she could take it. But then, she thought about everything they had shared, every moment that had felt real, every time she had seen him, protect her, defend her, love her. The project, the past, those were terrible things, things that needed to be faced, but they didn't change the truth of what she felt now. "I don't know what comes next," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "but I know that I need the truth, all of it, and I need to know what we're going to do about it." "I'll make it right," he promised, his voice filled with raw emotion. "I don't care what it takes. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. I'll make sure you never have to face this alone." And that was when they both knew. The hardest part wasn't the past. It was what came after. They would fight through it together, no matter how difficult the road ahead was. They had to, because anything less would mean giving up on something they both cared deeply about. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Rebecca, the woman who had once been so sure of herself, found herself on the losing side of a battle she had started. The investigation into the project began, and people who had been part of it for years were brought to light. Alexander used every connection he had, pulling strings to ensure that Emily would have the closure she deserved. But more than that, he made sure she had the chance to rebuild her life, free from the shadows of her past. For Emily, it wasn't just about finding out what had happened to her. It was about reclaiming who she was. She worked tirelessly alongside Alexander to expose the full truth, bringing justice to those whose lives had been shattered by the project. And through it all, they discovered something unexpected, a strength in their bond, a connection that had survived even the darkest of secrets. In the end, Emily didn't need forgiveness. She didn't need to forget. What mattered was that she was in control now. She had the power to make her own decisions, to shape her own future, and she wasn't going to let the past hold her back any longer. As for Alexander, he had learned the hardest lesson of all, that love wasn't about keeping secrets or protecting someone from the truth. It was about facing the truth together, no matter how painful, and choosing to move forward. The two of them stood side by side, knowing that the road ahead would never be easy. But with the past finally laid to rest, they could face whatever came next, together. And that, Emily realized, was enough. As the sun set behind them, the future stretched out before them, full of possibility. The truth had set them free,